Back in Lesson 1, we opened the Visual Studio IDE by going out to our Windows Explorer or File Explorer window and double-clicking a solution file for an existing project. In this video, we're going to open the IDE from the Start menu, and we're going to start overviewing various aspects of the IDE as well. Now, I'm running on Windows 10, and for that purpose I'll be using the Start button in the lower left corner here to locate and open Visual Studio. I've also gone ahead and pinned on my own taskbar here the icon for the Visual Studio IDE for quick access, and you may want to do that as well. Now, if you're running on Windows 7, your Start icon will look a little bit different down here, and on Windows 8 you're going to be using the Start screen to locate the tile for Visual Studio. So here in my Windows 10 Start menu, I can see the tile for Visual Studio. I can also go to the All Apps list, or in Windows 7, All Programs list, and locate the Visual Studio IDE in the list. Now, one of the nice features of Windows 10 is that it shows me that list in alphabetical order, so I can just scroll all the way down to the V's where I'll find the Visual Studio 2015 link as well. And regardless of which of the operating systems you're on, if you'd like to pin the icon to your taskbar, you can simply right-click the link and choose to pin it from the menu that pops up. Obviously, since I've already pinned it, I have an unpin option in my case. So let's go ahead and close that for a moment, and I'll go and launch the Visual Studio IDE. Now, once the IDE appears on your screen, you're going to see inside of the IDE's window, which I'll expand to fill the screen, the Start page. And the Start page is loaded with useful links that can help you get started by creating a new project, opening an existing project, and in this case, open from source control. This would be used by folks who are working on a programming team where you're collaborating on an application and you need to make sure that only one person at a given time is able to modify a particular source code file. There's also a list of recent items with the names of various apps that you've opened up in Visual Studio previously. And as you hover over any one of these links, you'll notice that there's a little pin icon that appears. And what this allows you to do is pin a given project to the recent items list. So if you have any important projects that you operate on frequently, you may want to pin them to the recent items. Now, over on the right-hand side here, there's all sorts of links to various online documentation, news, and videos that can help you learn more, not only about Visual Studio, which is the set of links at the top here, but also recent news about technologies that you can develop inside of Visual Studio, such as C# programming. And over here on the right hand side, you can learn more about various platforms that you can program for using Visual Studio. So we can build apps for Windows, for the cloud with Microsoft Azure, and also for the web with ASP.NET and web as well. And then finally, down at the bottom right here, you can see some featured videos also. And depending on the size of your screen, you may not have two columns of information over here. So if I go ahead and resize the window a little bit, you can see that it's gone down to a single column, and now the featured videos, for example, are all the way down at the bottom of the screen. So this is something that just pops up every time you open Visual Studio. If you close it and you need to get back to it, you can simply go to the View menu and select Start Page to pull it back up. Now, of course, one of the key things that we're going to be doing in Visual Studio frequently is creating new projects for each of the different applications you want to build. So let's go ahead and create a new project, and for that purpose I'm going to go to the File menu under New and Project to open the New Project dialog. Now, before I click that, you'll notice that there's an icon to the left of the menu item, and there's also a set of shortcut keys to the right. When you see an icon to the left of the menu item, that usually means that there's a corresponding toolbar button that you can click to accomplish the same task. And of course, the shortcut keys can also be used rather than opening the menus and selecting the corresponding menu item. So I'll click Project to open the New Project dialog. And usually what's going to happen here is it's automatically going to have selected whatever you previously used when creating your last project. So for me, I previously was using something from the classic desktop category called a Windows Forms application. Now, before we get into creating a new Windows Forms application for the purpose of this lesson, I'm going to collapse the Windows category and the Visual C# category here to show you that there are lots of top-level template categories, and each template gives you a foundation on which to build an application or a class library that you would like to create here inside of Visual Studio. Now, as you can see, there are actually a number of different programming languages and topics for which you have templates. Everything we use throughout these live lessons videos will come from the Visual C# category because we are programming in C#, so I'll expand that node. And then within the Visual C# category, you can see that there are a number of top-level categories of types of projects that you can create. So you can create applications for Microsoft Windows, you can create applications for the web. Some of the options that you're seeing here are because I specifically installed a tool called Xamarin from Microsoft. They recently bought Xamarin, and Xamarin is for cross-platform app development using C#. So for example, I can develop apps for Android and for iPad and iPhone using the Xamarin tools that are now installed into my copy of Visual Studio. There are also other categories here as well, and we'll talk about some of those categories in much later lessons in these live lessons videos. For the bulk of the apps that we're going to create in these live lessons videos, we're going to be using console applications in many of the early lessons. And in this particular lesson, in the Windows category, under Classic Desktop, we're going to be using a Windows Forms application. Now, down at the bottom here, once you select Windows Forms application, it gives a default name, and the number at the end is added only if you already have projects of the same name within the location folder. So this is the default location on my system where a new project is going to be stored. And you can see that it's in my user account's documents directory under Visual Studio 2015 and then under projects. Windows Forms Application 3 is the default name of the project, and that also becomes the default name of the solution. If I change this name, it will automatically change the solution name as well, but you can then change the solution name to be something different if you would like. You can also browse to select a different location for your project, and I always like to create a directory for my solution to keep it separate from the other projects that I'm creating. And finally, if in fact you're working with a source code control system, you do have the option of adding the new project to your source code control system as well. Now, once you click OK, that will create the project and open it in the IDE. Now, once a Windows Forms application opens inside the IDE, you'll automatically be presented with what's known as a form in Design View. The form is the window in which your app is going to execute. It's also where you'll place the graphical user interface components, or what we call controls in .NET, that the user can see and interact with inside of that window. In my IDE, I also have open on the right side here the Solution Explorer, just like we showed you in the preceding lesson, in this case showing me the components of a windowed application. And then down at the bottom, we also have the Properties window, which may or may not be displayed on your system right now. Now, if the Properties window is not displayed, you can always go to the View menu and select Properties window down at the bottom here, or similarly, if the Solution Explorer is not displayed, you can get to it from here as well. Now, once you've gone and displayed a window, if you want to make sure that it stays on the screen, remember that you need the pin icon to be in this vertical orientation. If you click that to put it into the horizontal orientation, you can see my Solution Explorer collapsed here, and I can click it to expand it, click it to contract it. If I click to expand and click outside of it, you can see it collapses once again as well. So if you do want to keep that pinned on the screen, you want to make sure that pin icon is in the vertical orientation, not the horizontal orientation. Now, when you have a form selected or a particular GUI control within the form selected, various properties will show up over here in the Properties window, and as you'll see later in this lesson, we'll be modifying values here to visually program this app that we're going to create that will show some text and an image on the screen.